Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell in the upper right hand corner. Follow me on all forms of social media. Check me out at thatdrummerguy.com and enjoy the following presentation.
Hey there, this is Alec.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, it's going all right. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for making time to do this interview.
No worries, thank you. I mean, it's the very least we can do. I mean, you've been particularly kind to the band, so at the very least. I mean, first and foremost, I'm happy to hear that you're on the mend health-wise.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's obviously diabetes is a no joke, as it were.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to hear that you're on the mend. So keep on keeping on.
Oh, thank you very much for that. And yeah, I mean, once I discovered you guys last year, I mean, I absolutely fell in love with your guys' sound, and it's awesome even though it took some time, it's awesome that I'm finally able to talk to you about what's going on in the world of Ghostbound.
Well, that's good. Well, thank you first and foremost for the compliment. And what's going on presently is we're kind of working on new material in various forms. Whether it's going to take the form of some kind of extended play or a full length or both. That's kind of where we're at the moment. Since the record came out, there are so many different kind of paths that the record took prior to when we even became a full band. I mean, the album was recorded as a two-piece, so we didn't really have a lineup until I guess you could even say beginning of 2018, so to speak. And that was a matter of kind of getting everyone up to speed as far as that goes. And then subsequently, releasing all as Phantom and then playing in support of it, which we did a few times. We're playing shows, just not really that often. We kind of all prefer to hunker down and write new material. That's kind of what we're doing. We do have a show coming up in a couple months here in New York, but other than that, we're focusing solely on writing and recording new material.
Oh, that's so great to hear, like being able to go from a two-piece to a full-fledged band and now being able to work on new material no matter what direction it starts to go in. I mean, how does that feel for you? Being able to get this off the ground like that?
It feels amazing because a lot of it is, I have many thoughts on it because I don't know how much you know the story of this record and how long it took to actually, from beginning to completion, but it was a journey of about 15 years. From when I started writing for it and off and on to when I felt comfortable enough to finally, in the last 4 or 5 to just kind of sit down and really woodshed it and complete it. So I was ready to move on as soon as we were finished recording it. And so because I had been with the songs for a lot longer than anyone else in the band. It's just like I've heard them in various forms forever. So I was ready to just kind of go in, finish the record, and then almost immediately start work on new material, just to say goodbye to that chapter, so to speak. And also, it would be the first time where I'd be writing with other people as opposed to just kind of screaming into the void, which is what I did largely with the first record. Yeah, it's a great feeling. I'm very pleased with the lineup. I feel that everybody is passionate about it and everyone's contributing now, which was always the aim of the band. I never wanted it to be, for lack of a better term, a one-man project. I always wanted it to be a band effort where we all have our parts and we all contribute to the songwriting in some form. And 4 or 5 of the songs that we're working on that may or may not take the form of a new EP, I was very happy with the process whereas the songs themselves are kind of left over from the All Is Phantom sessions in the respect that I've been sitting with them for a really long time. But in terms of arranging them, like the kind of blueprint around it, it was all done largely with the rest of the members of the band in a room together. And I'm very happy that took form. And it was people really kind of happy to work on it, which is exactly what I want. I kind of want us to have like a collective feel as opposed to just me, like a masturbatory one-man band. And I have no issues with one-man bands. I just don't quite have the acumen to do it again. Because it was just too long. It's too long of a process and too frustrating I couldn't do half of what you hear on All Is Phantom if I didn't recruit at least one other member. So that for the longest time, that was just Noah, our bassist, because he became like sort of my sounding board for most of for when we kind of formed it as a unit. But yeah, so I'm very, very happy that we have a full lineup, and it seems like everyone, like we gel really well, and we play really well together. Jury is still out as to whether or not we're like a solid live band. I think we're capable. I just have not. I'm kind of weird in the respect that I'm not always hungering to play live. I kind of find being in the studio and writing and recording to be much more preferable. But we have a very good chemistry as a lineup, and I feel that it's going to continue that way.
And that's what's so important too when you are able to get a full-fledged band is finding the right people that want to create the same vision as you, or if you're susceptible to be able to have a vision that they want to be able to contribute, and just being able to progress in that way.
Well, I try to be. I feel like I'm not Billy Corgan. Like I try to be, like, you know, for lack of a better term, a quote unquote band leader, where it's pretty much understood that it begins and ends with me. I'm over the age where it would ever be an ego trip, because I feel that it's like we're all a little bit. Everyone in the band is a little bit older than what most new bands who are coming around end up being. So we've all been in other bands, and we've all understood what it is to be either frontman or sidemen or sidewomen, as it were. So we kind of understand how bands operate, and not a lot of people learn that. Sometimes they just spend all their time in one project and they get bogged down, and it's their way or the highway. But in the case of Ghostbound, I feel that we're moving in the direction of a very quasi-democratic band, and I'm very happy that that's true, because frankly I've run out of ideas, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's what's so important, like for some people, like one-man projects or ones that are in charge of bands. I mean, they have ideas for decades upon decades, but for other people, just like being able to play with other people gives them creativity and inspiration to come up with new ideas. So
I mean, you're only as good as your partners, and it's true in any kind of performative art form. I come from an acting background, and that's true. It's true of that as well. I mean, you need another person. You always need another person. No person is an island. Even one-man bands eventually have to rely on someone else for something. In the case of this band, I embrace collaboration, and even though the vision will always be sort of mine, and I'll always sort of be its, for lack of a better term, director. I'm very happy that there are people in the band who actually have ideas and want to contribute, and it's endless fun to be in a room, and we, like, the songs we're demoing currently, it was just like we were all arranging string parts together, which is something that we really should have done with the first record. That's the one thing I would have changed if I had to go back, is put more time into the string arrangement, because this time we were all sitting at a keyboard and plucking things out via MIDI, and even it was like three guys who can't really play keyboards, just kind of like one finger pushing down on, no, it should be maybe this note, okay, or maybe plinking around with just one finger. It was kind of funny. It was like, how many Ghostbound members does it take to play one note on a keyboard? But it was enormous fun, and it was very invigorating to see all of us kind of be excited about the creation process, because it can. I mean, you are a musician as well, so you can understand how frustrating it can be when you're banging your head over a certain arrangement and you don't quite know where to go.
Oh yes.
And there's always, there are always ideas flowing in the room, and it's been a very fun experience. And I hope it continues in this way, because it's very enriching.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear that too. Again, for just that creativity and inspiration that goes into working with other people, and it's just. Of course, discovering Ghostbound myself last year with the album and being able to promote it the way that I have, and just loving what I've heard. I mean, how does it feel like, 11 months later, getting all of this reception from people who are just hearing the music for the first time?
Well, it's an interesting feeling because I was very naive in terms of what would transpire after the album was released. Because the album was officially released on June 1st of last year, and it still feels very new to me. It still feels very recent, and I'm still plugging away at it as if it were a new release because I don't feel like enough people have heard it, and at the risk of that sounding like sour grapes, I feel like we've been I don't feel like it was put out there in the way that I would have expected. I was expecting a lot more attention on it, which isn't to toot my own horn or anything. I was just my own naivety when it comes to the music business. Like, I immediately thought, oh, I'm signed to a label, so that must mean we're going to get a whole lot of publicity. But that didn't turn out to be the case. So that's largely why I kind of took it upon myself in the last year to just kind of really hunker down and kind of make that my second full-time job is, just making sure it was out there and that it was heard. And I made a few, not so much. It's been a learning experience, for lack of a better term, because I now know the importance of what it would be to hire a PR person, which I didn't do, and I will do definitely for the next release. So yeah, it's good. I wish there were more years on it, to be fair, because it's one thing if you just kind of go into the studio for a week and kind of lay an egg and there's your record. But I spent 15 years on this thing, and when your anxieties kind of get the better of you and you're refreshing your Bandcamp page in the hopes that you'll get more metrics, it's not a way I'd like to live my life. So I'd rather approach it from a place of positivity and hope that just more people will hear it.
Yeah, and with you describing that, the way that I'm looking at it is, it's just like you said, it has been like a learning experience, but now that the band has been able to grow so much since the release of the album, internally, and I'm sure with what the next release will be externally as well, being able to grow the band that much, it's just being able to see it grow and flourish from that point.
It's a weird feeling because I'm still very much in the same place mentally and emotionally that I was last year. Maybe I'm a little more relaxed about it. I did have this. I had a ton of anxiety about it, closer to the release of the record. I had this feeling that once the record was out, I would be relieved and everything would be good and I wouldn't have to do anything and all I would have to do is play. And it turned out to be the polar opposite. So I was just constantly hunkering down and contacting various zines and publications and podcasters and everything along those lines, just as a means to make sure that it didn't just die in obscurity. And it's not that my concern wasn't so much that people liked it, that if people heard it. And it couldn't be just me projecting. It could just be my own personal anxiety that if you're an artist of any kind, you're never really satisfied with anything. And I know that's especially true in my case, and that's why I'm constantly writing songs and I'm constantly pursuing, going to auditions as an actor and doing things to kind of make things better constantly, because you're never quite satisfied with where you are artistically. It's always forward, which I guess is why you keep doing it, right?
Oh yeah, once you run out of inspiration for a particular form of art, it's move on to a different kind of art.
Yeah, or just stop, or just be complacent and sit around being lazy, which incidentally is what I'm doing today. But just complacency is the death of everything. So I'm trying my best to kind of be a shark and just keep moving and keep writing and keep amassing riffs and ideas and inspirations and everything I do as a person, from reading a book to watching a film and everything else, kind of lends itself to inspiration and creating this world that kind of is Ghostbound. Because a lot of what Ghostbound is not just it's not just writing a song. It's kind of painting a picture or creating a world. Music. That's the ultimate goal, is to kind of evoke kind of an expansive sort of mood and atmosphere. So it helps to have a wide frame of reference, constantly to be collecting. And I had a teacher in school call it being a citizen, which that's just a term I love. Just kind of experiencing life and to gain proper information. And that's kind of how I am. That's kind of my overall holistic approach to the artistry of it, is just to gain as big of a frame of reference as you possibly can to be both a well-rounded artist and a well-rounded person. Because I feel that there are musicians out there who do, and artists as well, who just limit themselves and who are kind of content with just kind of sounding one specific way. But I kind of want to sound all ways. If that makes any sense.
Oh, absolutely, and I can hear that throughout the album as well, because there are no two songs that sound the same. I mean, it goes into different ways, but it all flows together so well. And, you know, the fact that you are able to have, like, a full band... Oh, absolutely. And the fact that you now have, like, a full band contributing their ideas and being able to expand the sound of what Ghostbound can be, whether it's a vision that you already had or something that you're learning from the other members of the band. I mean, that kind of creativity can only be a good thing.
Oh, it is. Yeah, they understand. Sorry, my voice is cracking. They understand the vision, but they also understand that the vision can change. So you might find that at least on not so much on this EP that we're working on, but definitely on the subsequent, on some of the new songs that we're working on, like the brand new things that didn't have any kind of precedent in a previous life. The new things are going to be very, very different. Pretty much conscious. It's like it's a conscious decision. Because I don't really like staying in the same place. Like the songs that we're working on in terms of this upcoming like extended play are largely in the same vein as what you would hear on All of Phantom. So they're kind of bigger, more, I guess, singer-songwriterly, expansive. They're a lot more simple than some of the songs on All of Phantom, I think. Mostly because they were written at a point where I didn't quite have the chops that I do now. But they also stayed with me, so I kind of wanted to revisit them as a way to get them out of my system so that I could finally move on to the next chapter of the band. And but I think the next chapter is definitely going to be a very conscious shift away, possibly into somewhere a little darker and more dissonant. That's kind of where I want to go currently. That's what current riffs are taking the form of. However, one thing I do know is that nothing really ever goes to plan. Like it could sound completely different by the time we end up recording it. I think that's true of a lot of people too. Because I remember I'm friends with some more erstwhile musicians who were always very, their records were always released with a lot of fervor behind them, and they would tell me in private how they're planning on it sounding, and then, they were like, yeah, we're going to move in a direction that sounds more like Talk, but the next album was even heavier than the last one. So it's never one never really knows.
And that's the exciting thing about creating art is even though if you have this idea and vision of where you want to go, it may go into a direction that feels even more natural the more that you progress through it. So, it's just like whatever comes of the next chapter of the band, I know I'm very excited to be able to hear it and see what can happen with this band.
I am too. I'm trying to keep myself surprised by it because I'm glad that there are people who are. I'm glad that we could have that effect on people. I'm glad that there are people who enjoy it and who are able to kind of glean that from it. Because for me, I'm very much still approaching it as a fan, and I'm still very surprised when I get a positive reaction from it. Which I guess is a good way to be. It's all I can do is just do what I've been doing, and that's just create and get it out there. And if people like it, wonderful. And I still kind of have this sort of like childlike approach to it, where somebody tells me they like it, and I'm legitimately chuffed, surprised, and grateful for the attention. So,
and that's such a great way to be too. Because you never know who's gonna discover your music. You never know who's gonna enjoy it, and you never know what those people being able to help show others the band. So it's just like you're constantly getting that fan base, and it's always a great feeling to know that you are constantly reaching people that enjoy what you do.
Yeah, I think that's one of the. There are many good things about being a musician in this day and age. There are many unfortunate things as well, but I think I see it all as sort of like the reality of our world at this point. But currently, like one of the great ways is that it'll always be there. Nothing is ever truly obscure in this day and age, if you think about it. Like when, I came from probably one of the last generations of people that knew what it was like to own a CD, and to just kind of to track down a CD that no one had heard of and spend upwards of like $30 on an import, you know, and there's that sort of, there's a preciousness that I miss about that, but also I'm glad that nothing is ever truly lost to the sands of time. Like, you could always track it down. So even if I stop promoting this record or this band, or, you know, or just flat out, even if we break up tomorrow and never, you know, witness or never even talk about the band ever again, like, there's still that possibility that energetically it'll be out there, that somebody can track down someone's Bandcamp page or go on YouTube or something like that. I do like that aspect that's kind of always out there for people to hear nowadays. Because that wouldn't have been the case 15 years ago. You know, because there are still kind of records that people are even now discovering from before the information age. So I'm pleased that it's going in that direction at the very least.
Oh yeah, and that was the way I used to discover music, you know, just like going to a record store, one of the bigger chain stores, and just like looking at the artwork, looking at the descriptions of the album, just looking at everything and just discovering music that way. And that's what such a great thing about like Bandcamp is, even though for better or for worse, I mean, the information age is here, but, you know, just like being able to discover a band like Ghostbound for myself, you know, just like looking at the descriptions and then being able to sample what you guys were capable of with that album, it was something that I absolutely loved and wanted to be able to help promote in my own small way. I mean, just from myself discovering it.
Yeah. And I do, one thing I do miss, and because back when I was in high school and middle school, I just loved scouring used CD bins. That was one of my favorite activities, is just kind of going through and I remember finding a rare Swans live record called Omniscience for like $6. Like, there was a chain where I grew up in California called The Warehouse that doesn't exist anymore, and they had this sort of this amazing kind of used CD section. A lot of it would be like, you know, stuff you would understand would be in the used CD bins, like, you know, Spin Doctors records and shit like that. But like, there would also be like, you could just stumble across, like, you know, there was a Hypocrisy record for $5, or you know, like that aforementioned Swans record, and like there's an album that I love that came out in the late '90s by this post-hardcore band called Handsome. You remember them?
I actually do, yeah.
Yeah, and I love that one record, and it was $2, and I remember just kind of regularly, like, I amassed thousands of records by doing this, and you know, I do miss that kind of personal aspect of physically rummaging through something, just to pick it out and find it in that tactile manner, because it's not quite the same. You're not using quite the same part of your brain when you're doing it online. Like, there isn't that kind of physical, you touch it, you flick through them. I guess you could do that with vinyl, but we're like, that's more of a novelty now. Like, people buy vinyl, but it's not because it's not because they have to. Back when, you know, it was just only CDs, that's what you did. And I very much, I do, that's an aspect of it that I do miss, because I feel like a lot of my formative years were spent doing exactly that.
Oh yeah, and you know, that's another great thing that I do appreciate with what you've done with Ghostbound, is because one of the great things about being able to pick up an album, be it vinyl, be it CD, is the artwork and looking at the booklets and everything like that. And with Alice Phantom, I mean, you have such a great album cover that is so intriguing that makes you want to listen to the music that is inspired by it.
I mean, it's all part of the same package. By the way, do you have a physical copy of the record?
I do not.
You know, I'll have to get one to you. Because because I do feel that, like, I designed it as sort of like this kind of last vestige, last gasp of trying to hold on to that physical full record experience of what it means to put an album into your CD player and to open up the liner notes and to read along, and have that be the experience, as opposed to nowadays where it's largely you put music on as a distraction for what you're already doing. You know, the listening is for the most part much more passive than it was, because you put music on or a podcast on when you work, or if you have a task that you're trying to accomplish. Whereas there was a period of time where you're tired. You have an hour of your day ironed out to sit down with the liner notes to the record and to kind of lose yourself into the world of the record. And I view All Is Phantom as being a kind of a self-contained universe. So everything feeds into one another, from the lyrics to the album artwork to the artwork within the liner notes, because there are more images that I feel are just as striking as the cover within. And I think a lot of people are missing out on that. I do. I feel that people who just have the files, who only have the cover, are missing out on some of the gorgeous artwork that my buddy Agam created for it. And he basically, I just gave him a loose guideline of what I wanted, and he pretty much went above and beyond and went his own way and made something that's better than I could have possibly imagined. So, it's definitely like, I feel the appropriate cover artwork for the record. I feel that an album cover should be indicative of what you're hearing.
Oh yes, and I couldn't agree more. And again, what I love so much about the cover and the album in general is it does have that cinematic feel to it. And, with All Is Phantom being contained in its own universe, I mean, it feels like a movie that is being played out. And it's great to see that, because outside of Ghostbound, with you being an actor, being able to show off both sides like that.
Well, I mean, showing off is one thing, because I'm at a point in my acting career where not much is really happening. I'm pursuing it more and more of late, because when I was working on All Is Phantom assiduously, like within the last 6 years, I had stopped acting entirely. Like I basically went out of my way to not act, just so that I can focus on making music. It was all I did before that. I kind of tried to do both for a while. And I realized if I was going to finish All Is Phantom, I needed to focus all of my energies on that. So that's what I did for like 6 or 7 years. And then it wasn't until the last year or so that I kind of made a conscious decision. Like I was seeing a bunch of my friends pop up on various TV shows and going to see plays. And in New York City, there's no shortage of that. And I was kind of forgetting how much fun it was, like how much fun I had when I was doing it. And I was like, you know what? I can pursue this again. I think it's time. I think I'm at a point now where I'm comfortable enough with both aspects of what I do artistically that I can theoretically do both. Whether or not I'm successful at either is anyone's guess. But because I do have, realistically speaking, this isn't my means of income. We do all have day jobs in the band, so it's in some cases outright careers. So it's, trying to find that balance. And the acting thing is definitely something I view as what I hope to be a way to make money, whereas the music is something that I feel has less commercial appeal and it will just be a passion. But with acting, you're always kind of serving someone else's vision. And that's why I always felt a lot of fun when I did it, because there wasn't a lot writing on it for me. It was always someone else's words. And most I had to do was a good job. There wasn't anything, it didn't have this, this burning feeling of having to get it out or else I'll die feeling like All Is Phantom does, because All Is Phantom is solely, its success rests on me alone. That is because it's 100% mine, from the ground up. So, whereas like acting is, by its very design, you're going to be serving someone else's vision, whether it be the writer or your fellow actor or the director who tells you to stand somewhere, things like that. Does that make any sort of sense?
Oh, absolutely. And, again, for the creative mind, it's great to be able to see that you can do both in different ways. I mean, and again, that kind of circles back into making Ghostbound into a full band, because when you are seeing someone else's vision when you are acting, it is like seeing the same vision as like someone else would see Ghostbound in the band. So, just being able to see that vision of what you have and working with others.
Mm-hmm. No, that's exactly right. And I think I also will, in addition to Ghostbound, I've been known to occasionally play with Cosmo Demonic, who are another New York kind of blackened doom sort of band. And it was largely being in that band that taught me, what it was like to actually be a member, because I just played guitar for them. We actually should have a new record coming out fairly soon, but being that it wasn't my project, it was sort of something I could, be a sideman on and kind of learn how to function within that unit. So I understand both sides of it, which is why I think being in having other, I think I'm trying to not step on my words here. I just think it makes having members easier now that I know how to kind of participate and act in a band myself.
Oh yeah, that totally makes sense. And again, that's why I keep saying, like, I'm so excited to see where Ghostbound is going to be going in the future. I mean, the more that you're adapting to that situation of being able to have this be a full band, trying out new visions along with your own, and just seeing where things are going to go, and just you never know what you're going to be inspired by. So the fact that Ghostbound being susceptible to new ideas is just an exciting feeling.
Yes, it is, and I'm very curious, because I have a certain idea as to where I want it to go, and I'm very curious as to how other members will influence that as well. Because you want the record, you want the next record. I won't release another record unless it's better than the previous one, in my estimation. So I would like, this first one took a lot of time, and I'm hoping that the second one will not. I'm hoping that the second one will come out a lot faster, or otherwise just be complete a lot quicker. And then with more people in the band, I think that's a possibility. I just don't want to sit on the material as long as I did for All Is Phantom. It taught me patience. Because in addition to spending 15 years with the material, like, it was another, like, I think we finished recording the album in, let me think, and we've actually wrapped up recording in August of 2016, and that included mixing and mastering and everything. We went in 2015 to start to basic tracking, the guitars, bass, and drums, and then a number of months later, like 3 to 6 months later, we went back in to do vocals, overdubs, and strings. And then I think by August it was 100% complete, mixed and mastered. And if you do your math, it was another year and a half before we had any inkling of a record contract or even another band member. So it's been a timeline. It's been quite a long time. I would hate for that to happen again. I would hate for have another record and then sit on it for a couple of years only for it to come out in its current form. We're trying to pick up the pace on new material just to get things out there. I'm much more excited about that than I am of the prospect touring, to be honest.
Yeah, and that is a great vision to be able to have. I mean, even though being able to play live can be a great experience, seeing the people that you're either making new fans that may not be familiar with you in that live setting, or seeing fans come out specifically to see you, the idea of being able to constantly create and write can be more appealing at times.
I like playing live. I like the 30 minutes to an hour that I'm actually on stage. But preparing for a live show is not worth it for me. I find like I have to take an entire day off work, and we all have big stupid pieces of gear that we have to lug around. In the case of stateside, we don't have much of a following, so the most we can really do is rely on our material and to try and get it out there so that people can hear it. Because we've had a couple occasions where promoters haven't known what to do with us necessarily, so they'll shoehorn us into like a 6-band bill, and we like 6-band bill featuring bands that are just diametrically ill-fitting with one another, and it just the shows just won't make sense. And next thing you know, we're playing for like 6 of our family members and maybe 1 friend. and it's like it's almost to the point. It's like for me, doing a live show from now on has to be worth it for me. Like it has to be on a night where people will come out, It has to be with bands that appeal to our sensibilities, and like, not so, but they don't have to sound similar to us necessarily, but they do have to have, some reliance on atmosphere or mood so that it would make sense. Because I definitely I'm definitely tired of, I don't know how it is where you are, but in New York City, it's like the 6-band bill is very popular.
Oh yes,
and
that is
for me. I don't like seeing more than 3 bands on a bill at most, I just hate. It's such a blatant cash grab on a promoter's part to have a 6-band bill, because everyone gets 15 to 30 minutes to play a set at most, and no one really gets their money's worth except for the promoter. It's just not possible. It's just not feasible. It's just so not worth it when you have, it'd be one thing if we all had, I guess like ampless rigs or axe effects or things that a lot of the modern touring musicians have. But we kick it old school in the respect that we have amplifiers and cabinets and massive, sometimes senseless pedal boards. So it's just playing live. I'm kind of going with the Neurosis / Agalloch mold of playing live, where do it as necessary and make it special, as opposed to just doing it for the sake of doing it. Because actually playing live, because making and writing music to me, I think that's much more rewarding.
Yeah, and you actually said it for me. I was just going to say that's what's going to make the future Ghostbound shows so much more special, is making them more of like a special event, just like play shows as needed, but it not a necessity to like go out of your way to do like tours with 6-band bills and and towns that you're not familiar with, but rather having those one-off shows or mini tours or whatever the case is, and just make them more special.
That's the aim. That's the aim with us, because we all have day jobs and lives, and in some cases families and careers, and it's just finding that balance. And in my case, I have a full-time job on top of another full artistic thing that I do. So I do need to make time for all of those things. In addition to being a person, you have to do that. I think there's some people have this image of of just like if I'm just using myself as an example, that I'm some kind of sophisticate that doesn't have, that kind of exists in the ether somewhere, that just by virtue of the music I make alone. But it's really, literally what I was doing prior to when I made this call to you, was I was playing the new Mortal Kombat game. So that's, you just need to you have to find time to be a person as well. And I'll probably try my hand at composing a couple riffs a little later as well. But kind of ran out of my train of thought there. But yeah.
Oh, nothing wrong with that. And again, just like you pointed out so greatly, I mean, it is so important to be a person. I mean, it's great to have that artistic side. It's great to have that motivation and consistently trying to better yourself in different ways. But it is so important to be able to enjoy things in life as well.
Yeah, I mean, you have to enjoy life. And I guess the current thing amongst the black metal chud scene is those dumbasses who refer to their shows as rituals.
Oh yes.
Just a lot of these U.S. black metal bands that are coming under fire by various groups for their perceived political leanings, who refer to their shows as rituals. And I'm trying to think of these people, and I'm like, how do these people exist? How are they people? Like, do they enjoy pizza, or are they constantly doing rituals? or are they? It's like what are their? I think a lot of these people take themselves a trifle too seriously, and I take the music seriously, but I feel that in most other cases it's almost a crime to be serious. I've been getting a lot of amusement from the social media aspect of this kind of this whole kind of U.S. black metal scene, and how specifically a lot of these far right bands are just kind of coming off even dumber than I would have expected, and just kind of trolling them as much as possible. And it's been fun. It's a shame because it's like if I were to choose a specific subgenre that kind of I reared myself on, and probably the thing that influenced Ghostbound the most, it would have to be black metal. That was when I was a teenager, that's kind of what I would view as that kind of got me out of the idea that heavy music as a thing is just heavy, or it's quote unquote rocks. Like black metal to me sounded like it was kind of redolent of the elemental force. Like it sounded like the wind or the rain. Like it didn't have, like, more so than other subgenres of metal. Like that's kind of where my thought process was with it for the longest time. And it's still a genre that I return to and listen to a lot. But it's nothing more than a genre to me. And I find a lot of these metal as a lifestyle people to be very tiresome.
Yeah, and honestly, I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, as much as music is a passion of mine, whether it's creating or being able to promote it in my ways, it is music. I mean, it's not...
It's the genre.
It's just a
thing you listen to. It's a thing you listen to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like there's this. I think there's this kind of unwritten thing where to be a metalhead specifically, it's like you have to love all metal, or you have to have a bullet belt, you have to have a back patch, or you have to have long hair. There's this whole metal as a lifestyle subculture which falls into black metal subculture, which falls like, to me it's just glorified inceldom. At the expense of being like a contributing, happy, healthy member of society. And it's like how do you work a day job? How do you make money? How do you communicate with the outside world if all you're doing is holding yourself up in your little dark elf dungeon and having a ritual? It's just like it's a genuine question I have with these people. It's just like, because no one in the New York scene is like that. No, like no one. Like even like all of my friends who are in kind of the more erstwhile New York black metal bands, they're all fun, silly, goofy people. And there's other cross section of people who I'm not aware of their music. I haven't heard them before, but I just remember reading up on them. I think this band Terrorism.
Oh yes.
They dropped off of a festival because they heard that Neckbeard Death Camp were playing the same festival. And they felt that it was making a mockery of the genre, so to speak. So, they didn't want to share the bill with a band that didn't take black metal seriously. And then you have another band that refers to their shows as Ritual.
Yes, they do.
And I'm sitting there going like, I thought it was a metal show with bands that play fast and heavy. It's like people are very precious about their genre or their scene, and I've never been precious about metal as a genre. I love it, but I love other genres just as much. So I think it's important to just be a fan of music first and genre second. But I was getting a lot of amusement from the Facebook mudslinging on this, because at the best of times they still came off like dorks. In that respect, it's kind of a glorious time to be alive, because it's rampant now. Like every week, there's a new controversy. It's hilarious.
No, it's so true. And yeah, I remember like 7-8 years ago, I actually saw Terrorism live. It was a part of a live benefit show that was going on here in Minnesota, and I saw them like setting up the candles, and they were like dressed up in their robes, and they were referring to the show as a ritual. And I'd never been to a show before where someone referred to it as a ritual, but I enjoyed the music. Here's
the thing. I have no qualms whatsoever if you want to dress up,
yeah,
or put candles up, or to draw you into their experience. I think that's an amazing thing. I'm not a huge fan of their music, but Cosmo Demonic opened for Watain once, and that was an experience I will take to my grave. Like opening for them was something that like musically, I feel that they're pretty average, but live, oh my god, they were incredible live. Like and the fact that we got to play the show was even more astounding. And it was just like, they had flaming tridents on stage, and they were all corpse painted out, and they even this was the show. I don't know if you read about this. It actually wound up on TMZ. This was the show where they doused the audience in rancid pig's blood.
Oh yes.
Yeah, that was that. We played that show, and it was amazing. And it was utterly like, those of us who knew what was going to happen, we were smartly standing in the back. But I remember just like the simultaneous reaction of revulsion and horror and sheer kind of ebullient joy that came out of the audience when that transpired. It was like people running out to wash themselves off or to vomit or to do whatever, or the super fans who were just kind of reveling in it, like just like completely enjoying themselves. And and as much as I can poo-poo Watain and their kind of black metal chudness nowadays, that was an experience. That was a show that I'm glad I got to witness. It was something that I was like it's a story that I'll have for the rest of my life. But as it is, it was still a show. That's the thing. It was still a show.
Oh yeah.
It's still a metal show. Yeah. And it may have looked like a ritual, it was definitely a metal show.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's stated, like, I have no, like, as a band with somewhat, I guess some people will throw out the term theatrical in our sound. I don't hear it myself, but, I understand why people would say that. As a band that has sort of like a not so subtle way of presenting itself, at least sonically speaking, I totally understand getting tarted up for a show. I totally get wanting to draw people into your experience, into your sense of truth as a musician. I get that entirely, but I will never once refer to it as a ritual.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's what I was going to be getting at too. Is like I really enjoyed the music live, and the idea of like having those aesthetics live. I mean, if they fit the show and they make everything happen, it's great. But again, it is a show. It's not a ritual.
I'm sure Terracism is great live, dude. I'm sure. Like I can't recall ever actually listening to them.
Yeah.
I do. I know a couple of the bands from that scene. I have a friend who plays in Cult of Azazel. And another long-running band that I don't listen to much, but it's an interesting thing that there are those who are so precious about their genre that they won't play a festival because another band specifically lampoons said genre.
Yeah.
Because I would take it in stride, and I don't know, like I love it when people troll me. Or so one of the most amusing reviews I had of Ghostbound was a negative one. It was one of the most well-written reviews we've received. Was one that tore us apart, and I love it. It's like, take it in stride, take it in good humor, go with it.
Oh, absolutely.
All they're doing is putting eyes on the product, and that can only be good.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it. I mean, I love what Neckbeard Death Camp does for black metal, and just like being able to troll the right side of that, because with the right side doing that to the left, it's just like you're giving promotion to both sides. Yeah.
Well, anything, I think Neckbeard Death Camp is just going to be on the right side of history. To be fair,
that is true.
At the end of the day, they're just going. They're doing the Lord's work by bringing attention to such stupidity. But another band. Like I don't go for joke music largely. I often find that joke music kind of gets the music part wrong. They're usually genuinely funny at the expense of any actual content. But Nectar Death Camp, keep on keeping on. Keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, awesome. And I think with that, being able to support Neckbeard Death Camp like that, I think that's a great note to end on. And again, thank you so very much for taking all this time to be able to talk to me about Ghostbound.
No, well, thank you so much for all of the positive energy you're throwing our ways. And just in general, I hope you remain healthy for the future. I hope to talk to you again soon. And I'm glad things are looking up in terms of your own health. I can't wait to see what else you do with your podcast and your zine.